Hey, thanks for stopping by Minnesota Black Robe Regiment. As always, make sure you are subscribed. There's a couple of different options for subscribing down there, one right in the video and then one down below. If you're checking this out on Rumble, make sure that you're following on Rumble so that when I put out content, you're getting an email, because that's how Rumble lets you know. I gotta shill a little bit. If you're a coffee drinker, I'd show you my coffee, but I'm all sold out. So anyway, you can get a mug to go with the coffee when it comes in. It's good stuff. Everybody's liked it so far. So, neighbor bought my last bag yesterday, so now I have to wait for my shipment today. Anyway, I am really excited today to have coming on a candidate for governor here in the state of Minnesota. I've reached out to numerous candidates trying to be, what's the right term we're supposed to use today? Equitable. I'm using equity. That's it. Trying to give them all a chance to talk, and so far only two of them have wanted to. I guess I'm not a big enough fish in the pond for anybody to pay attention to, but today we've got Mike Murphy coming on, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his campaign, hopefully a lot about his campaign, why he's running, what he's bringing to the table, and what his plans are going forward now after the caucus. So if you would, ladies and gentlemen, welcome, Mike, and
hey, TC.
tell us what on earth made you decide to get up in the morning and come on my channel. No, I'm kidding. Other than the pressure that I brought on you.
Oh, you didn't pressure me at all. I mean, people deserve to hear from their, people running for office, their local elected representatives. It's important. And, if people aren't taking the opportunities to meet with everybody, then they're not running a campaign for the people. They're running a campaign for themselves. And that's exactly what I've been finding on this campaign trail. A lot of the other candidates I'm running against are not doing it for everyday Minnesotans. They're doing it to build their profile, and I could care less about any of that. It doesn't mean anything to me whatsoever.
Yeah, I like the way that you put that. Hey, and nice catch, by the way, by not changing it from leaders. That was phenomenal. I like to hear that. I've run into that with the Attorney General campaign. It's not just you guys running for governor. It's with the Attorney General. Lynn and Dennis have both been willing to come on and talk and stay in communication. And I've personally had a conversation with Doug Wardlow face to face. Oh yeah. We'll come on. And I've reached out several times and nothing. No, not that I'm terribly shocked, by the way, but I appreciate your time. And before we get too much into your campaign, I would love for you to tell people where this all started for you, because you didn't enter into service as a public servant with the idea of even being mayor, let alone running for governor. You kind of started down at the bottom of the hill in some respects. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, 2016, I ran for city council because, I wanted to get back involved again after my law enforcement career ended, and this is another way to serve. And took over as mayor in 2016, and that's when I just started, dropping the hammer and making change that needs to be done in my community to make Lexington thrive and survive for the future. But not only that, our residents of our community are also benefiting from reduced government spending and lower property taxes and a phenomenal police department and Second Amendment sanctuary city and health freedom sanctuary city, just lots of stuff. But the issue is you get a lot of these people that go to St. Paul as a representative or as a senator, and 10 years later, they feel like they're qualified to be governor, but at the same time, they did nothing for you 10 years while they're sitting in the House or the Senate. And it's kind of the principle that Joe Biden ran on, which is, I've been elected for 47 years, and now as president, I can go fix everything. And that's complete nonsense. A majority of these people I'm running against haven't done anything for Minnesotans. They haven't even proven their leadership or the fact that they're capable of making change.
So you started out as a beat cop.
Yeah, low in the totem pole.
Yeah. So and where'd you do your law enforcement time?
I worked for the county, and then I worked for the city as well, Anoka.
Yeah.
It was very short-lived when I hurt my back, so it
I was gonna say
wasn't long, but my travels in law enforcement go all the way back to my young teenagers days as an explorer and a CSO and all sorts of other positions I held before I
were retired out. You were retired out medically after an injury, correct?
Yeah, I was off duty fun times hunting in your tree stand step breaks on your way up, and you go down.
Isn't it a wonderful way to end a career?
No.
But in some respects, it's as rough as it is to give up a career that you love and want to be in. It opened up some other doors for you, because you didn't just like give up. You went out and kind of embraced that entrepreneurial spirit and started a business and everything before you even thought about getting back into politics, if I understand it correctly.
Yeah, I mean, life is a journey, and our path is in front of it, and we just, in front of us, and we just have to take it as we see it. Yeah, it was hard having to leave law enforcement, but now, once I think about it after all of these years, I mean, it's going to be 14 years now here shortly. This year, I think it's 14 years. I mean, now that I think about it as a mayor of a community that, I mean, I've gone full circle now where I'm sitting on top of the police department as an elected official, as opposed to working my way through the ranks, and I feel that I can offer more benefits and do more for law enforcement now than I probably ever could have working in the profession.
Do you feel like, even though you had a brief law enforcement career, do you feel like that has made it easier for you, or somehow facilitated your ability to communicate with the police department and other officers in your municipality and around the state now as you run for governor?
Yeah, I mean, I've always stayed a part of law enforcement. I've always kept up those connections and those friendships that I built. And but I mean, what a lot of people don't realize is that police officers are people too. It's not like we're robots or machines that are built in some factory. And that's the problem with our society, is people are fearful of police when they really have no reason to be so, or they make situations more difficult than they should. Really, at the end of the day, the job is to protect and serve, and it's there to do a lot of good. And there's more good that comes out of law enforcement than people even realize, the things that you don't hear about on the news. And that's the problem. And that's my goal here. And that's what we're doing here also in Lexington. But that's what I want to show statewide as governor, is that police are more than just there to pull you over. They're more than, to respond to an active shooter situation or to serve warrants. I mean, police officers do pull people out of burning buildings too, when the fire department, is still gearing up to come to a call. I mean, police officers do deliver babies. Police officers do resuscitate people. They do go shopping and buy clothes and mittens and warm gear for the homeless. And I mean, look at Sheriff Bob Fletcher in Ramsey County, all the gift cards he gives out. There's so much good in law enforcement that people don't see, that we need to realize that is there. But we can change the state of policing in Minnesota, that it's effective and also non-confrontational in a way that people are going to go burn our streets down when situations happen.
You, as the mayor of Lexington, you made some decisions that a lot of mayors and other elected and appointed servants wouldn't dream of doing. So you said, we're going to be a Second Amendment sanctuary city, and we're going to be a medical freedom sanctuary city. And you did that, not especially the medical freedom aspect. You did that at the height, kind of at the height of the COOF restrictions and whatnot that were coming in. Did you get a lot of pushback from your community, or from your city council, or from even the state? Because I know some of that was what compelled you to take a look at running for office.
Yeah, so the Second Amendment sanctuary, that's kind of natural. I mean, we are the city of Lexington. The Minuteman is our logo. I mean, it totally makes sense. We received no pushback on that at all. It was well embraced. People love it. We have, Bill's Gun Shop is just right down the street. I mean, it all fits within our community for being the sanctuary city. But health freedom, we went back and forth on for a few months, because we were afraid that, the Keith Ellisons of the world are going to come attack us like they did to Lisa Hansen. And we decided to table it for a bit, because the restrictions were starting to be lifted. And then all of a sudden, Minneapolis and St. Paul decided that they were going to create, segregation based on your health status and social credits, that we decided that we were going to do the sanctuary city and, stand up to it, because we're sick and tired of mandates. My businesses, my restaurants, called me up and said, "Hey, are you guys going to impose these vaccine requirements and these mask mandates on us?" And we're like, "Nope, we're going to pass this resolution. It's time to stand up and make an official stance against the tyranny, just like the truckers are doing in Canada."
Did you get much pushback from the Attorney General's office or from the governor when that happened, or did they kind of back off?
They backed off. They ignored it. Obviously, they don't want to bring it to the spotlight, but I know that they're waiting any day if they need to, that they're going to come after us for it. But, the resolution clearly states that we're not going to enforce any mandates or edicts that come down from the governor's office or Joe Biden's office. We're not going to do it. And if they want to come sue us, come sue us.
And you would just, and I don't know, people who don't know you would go, well, that's just because he's a conservative, staunch, Republican. But I've gotten to know you a little bit over the last year. I would tell people that he'd say the same thing to a allegedly conservative Republican that was playing the same game.
Absolutely. You don't mess around with people's freedoms, and you don't mess around with America and our Constitution. And when these elected officials are violating their own rule book, they need to get smacked in the face with it. And that's firmly what I believe.
When did the idea of running for governor to challenge, because ultimately your goal is to get Walz out of office, and obviously you're convinced you're the best candidate for that, otherwise you wouldn't be running. But when did the idea start to really kind of worm around inside of your head that this was the time and now was the place, or here was the place, or however you want to say it?
God, that's a good question. Honestly, I think what really pushed me over the ledge was when I watched Minneapolis and St. Paul burn to the ground for a week, while Tim Walz hid underneath his bed in the governor's mansion, not doing anything to help the people of Minneapolis and St. Paul and stop the anarchy that he caused and created, which sparked outrage across the United States because he sent a clear message that blue state governors don't give a shit, sorry for my language, about your own public safety and your rights to live peacefully within your community. And that's kind of what really pushed me over the edge to do this, because I hate tyrants. I hate tyranny. I hate people like Tim Walz. He abused us with emergency powers. He locked our churches down and kicked us out of our restaurants and masked up our children for 700 days with zero accountability. And don't even get me started on the nursing home deaths and the things that he did to our veterans and our veterans homes. But what really pushed me over the edge was the 2020 riots, where I'm like, we got to have somebody strong and bold that has law enforcement experience, business experience, and executive experience as a mayor to run the state and get it fixed. And a political outsider.
Yeah, you definitely hit the political outsider schema there, don't you? You kind of, people have, when I talk to people now, they're like, who's this Mike? I like him, but where's he coming from? And then I say, well, he's from Lexington, and they're like, where's Lexington? So where is Lexington in relation to the cities?
Yeah, southern end of Anoka County. We border Blaine, Lino Lake, Circle Pine, Centerville, Shoreview. So we're right in the metro. It's not that we're a small town community, 3 hours away from Minneapolis and St. Paul. We are right here, surrounded by 300 and some thousand people on all sides of us. Square miles wise, yeah, we're a small city. We're going to be a little over 5,000 people this year, but at the end of the day, we still face the same problems that Blaine and Alina Lakes does when it comes to having to deal with the world famous Met Council and MnDOT with the road projects. And doesn't matter the size of your city. When you're in the Twin Cities Metro, you're in the Twin Cities Metro, and you have to deal with all the same stuff.
Yeah, people don't understand. Like, you guys are. It's like when you're coming, let's say you're heading from Rochester up to the Twin Cities. People's mind just, oh, I'm in the Twin Cities. They don't oftentimes realize they're in a suburb that has its own independent city council, its own mayor, its own police force, and whatnot. And yet, as you said, everybody who's in that metro area outside of Minneapolis and St. Paul is affected by bad decision making at the state capitol and in those two cities. And has Lexington seen much bleed over with crime trying to encroach into your community from the lack of proper law enforcement management?
We did. We had some people who tried to take advantage of the George Floyd and Dante Wright situations and even some spillover when Kenosha was burning. But our law enforcement in Anoka County, plus my city as well, we share a police department with Centerville and Circle Pines. We're one of the very few joint power agreements police department in the state of Minnesota, but we have a phenomenal law enforcement agency ran by top-notch law enforcement professionals with, they have, degrees in FBI training academy, certificates, and just everything. I mean, these guys are top-notch. They're the best that I've ever met in law enforcement, and they didn't tolerate it. They didn't tolerate it whatsoever. They went after the people that were trying to take advantage of the situation. And of course, our sheriff in Anoka County, James Stewart, which I'm sad he's retiring now, but I remember meeting him, when I was like 10 years old, when I started the Explorer program. No, it was 12 when I started the Explorer program, and he's been around forever. James Stewart's a legend, and he's the doesn't take any shit kind of guy. And he, sent out his deputies to help those who needed it, and put an end to the looting and the rioting that happened here, because Northtown Mall is not too far away, and the Best Buy and all these other places were starting to get hit. I mean, in perspective, Northtown Mall is a 10-minute drive to downtown Minneapolis on University. So, I mean, we had opportunists everywhere. But since then, we're fully staffed. We have great equipment, and not that I'm trying to, speak for our police department, but it's we have a phenomenal staff. We have phenomenal officers, very well trained, very well educated, and they take the mindset of community policing, and they do a great job. But the crime levels in both all three communities are down. I know how to do that, and it's not all my doing, but I know how to do that at the state level. Just because I know a lot of these phenomenal law enforcement professionals that I can activate and move into positions, within my leadership ranks. As a governor, I already have a police commissioner picked out. He actually just retired as a public safety director. I won't name the agency he worked for, but he has a phenomenal resume, 40 years worth of law enforcement experience. He's an expert in human trafficking. He helped work the Super Bowl detail for that, which is a huge issue to me. And that's a big deal in Minnesota, is the human trafficking and child sex trafficking, that we got to get under control and change the laws and start punishing these people that are getting away with this stuff. But we can have phenomenal public safety in Minnesota. I know that. I'm very confident in it.
Would you, so I'm gonna, it's not a gotcha question, but maybe a little bit more in depth than I'd ask somebody else. Would you say that one of the reasons that we're struggling with law enforcement in Minnesota is because, as you said, blue state leadership is so enamored of the idea of placating the violent masses, that they're doing everything they can in their power to tie the hands of the rank and file officers? And a lot of times senior leadership in those agencies is far more interested in staying on the good side of that kind of leadership? Or do you think it's more of a deep-seated problem with some of the people in the state who are functionaries of law enforcement? Or is it coming from higher up, do you think?
I think it's coming from the elected officials, because, I mean, at the end of the day, the elected officials do a lot of the hiring and promotion of the brass, and of, the governor, for one, appoints the, police commissioner to his cabinet. And where the hell is John Harrington? He's not doing anything. He should be out, being proactive against this crime, and instead of sitting behind his desk. I mean, a lot of that stuff comes down from those types of people. But even at the local elected level, I mean, if you look at the types of police chiefs that are being hired and promoted to these positions, they know that if they mess up, or if they don't follow the rules of, let's say, Jacob Fry or Melvin Carter, they're just going to get replaced by a yes person that will. An overwhelming number of law enforcement, and when I say that, I mean like 99.9999999%, do not support the policies of Jacob Fry, Melvin Carter, Tim Walz. That's not why they got into this profession whatsoever. And that's why you see a growing number of law enforcement officers retiring, or they're going out on medical leave for PTSD, or they're moving to states that want their service, because it is about serving, and it's about helping people. If you look at
that creates a vacuum then, where where those same men and women who are being appointed in these leadership positions, and some of them, in the cases of some sheriffs, are elected into these metro style areas, metro type areas, are placating their voting electorate, and so they lose their veteran staff who maybe got into it for the right reasons, and now their hiring pool isn't being filled with people who are getting into it for either a desire to serve and for law and order, but because they also have a political agenda and they're looking to enact that through their job.
Correct. And if you look at the state of law enforcement, recruitment levels at the college level are down drastically. The last time I heard, Minneapolis used to have about 600 to 800 applicants for, a number of positions, like 10. Right now, I don't even think they're getting more than 30 applications for these positions that they need to fill because they're so, empty-handed. Nobody wants to work for that police department because the leadership is terrible. It's absolutely terrible. Jacob Fry is not qualified to be mayor of Minneapolis whatsoever. And you can see that with the way that he's handling everything and the backpedaling that he's doing now after the tragic, incident that occurred with Amir Locke and the, no-knock search warrant. But, Florida, for instance, they're recruiting like crazy. They're pilfering law enforcement from these blue states, including ours, by offering them, $10, $15, $20,000 sign-on bonuses. Plus, they'll pay for your entire family to relocate to the city that they're getting hired in. I know Broward County is doing the same thing with heavy recruitment, salaries and bonuses and move-in specials as well, because they need law enforcement there, because people are flocking to those states that are abandoning states like Minnesota. But, it's going to take more than the whole mindset of, okay, we have new leadership now, so everything's hunky-dory. It's going to take somebody who's actually willing to lead and create the change and say the things that need to be said to save law enforcement as we know it. That's why we have to put people in positions, and commissioners in positions, and leadership in positions that will do that, with the mandate of, hey, we're here for law and order. We're here to serve the people, to protect and serve. I mean, that's the mantra, instead of using political agendas, because at the end of the day, the way our framers founded our Constitution and, the way that our laws are written is that they're supposed to be nonpartisan and they're black and white. And for too many years, we spent too much time in our society with our elected officials turning, law into politics, and it's not supposed to be that way whatsoever. And it's just nonsense that we have county attorneys like John Choi in Ramsey County, who's no longer prosecuting felony offenses that stem from low-level traffic stops. I mean, what's going on? Or that we're bolstering, radical organizations like the Minnesota Freedom Fund, who is literally using cash bail to bail out violent offenders and pedophiles and child sex traffickers and rapists with no accountability. And then we have judges like Judge Chu, who oversaw Kim Potter's trial, where she is giving, turning the screws, or turning the wrench on Officer Potter by charging her, allowing her to be charged with higher sentences that she should have, locking her up in solitary confinement. But meanwhile, in the background, since after all of that took place, she's letting all of these criminals go free that enter her courtroom that are longtime felons, multiple felons, and violent felons, and she's kicking them, to the streets. And the double standards in our judiciary is nonsense, and we have to get that under control. And I'm not afraid to use the office of the governor to do it.
Well, that's epidemic in the entire state of Minnesota. When you look at violent crime, I'm gonna just toss out, I don't care what people's views are on the war on drugs, whatever.
Yeah, ignore that.
You toss all that out and you just look at violent crime in the state of Minnesota and how it's being handled, not just in the Twin Cities, but in other jurisdictions. And then you juxtapose that with what happened to Lisa Hansen. And I say that because you have been a very ardent supporter of Lisa's. Very
big supporter.
And I think you and I, that's one of how we really met was at an event where Lisa was going to be speaking up, our first time meeting face to face. And Lisa was speaking at that event at the state capitol. And it was very clear that you were moved by her story, and you've stayed in contact and moved by that. When you see a judge like, Joey Butel down in the 3rd District Court, sitting as a chief judge of that court, sitting down in Freeborn County and throwing the book at Lisa and dressing her down in the courtroom, that tells you an awful lot about the justice system and the legal system in the state of Minnesota. As governor, and I'm going to throw in something else here with part of that, because you brought up Amir Locke. As governor, how do you affect a change in the system that, quite frankly, my own personal experience, I'm seeing it as it's almost so corrupt. I don't know if it can be saved without a massive overhaul. What, as governor, can you do to affect a change in a system like that with the Lisa Hansons and the Larvina McFarquhars and the Lisa Monets? And how do you address things like no-knock warrants? And where do you draw the line on something like that as governor? And how much can you say and how much can you do?
That is a very big question, and I'm happy to
notorious for asking stuff that takes too long to answer.
Here's the thing: it's going to take a multiple step approach, and it's not just me that's going to have to do it. It's going to be all of us, like yourself, and the Keith Haskells that have a big voice as well with school boards and other representatives like Eric Mortensen, and the ones that are still hiding in the closet who want to come out like Eric Mortensen, but they're afraid to because of their caucus is going to throw them under the bus. We need people who are bold and who aren't afraid to say the things that need to be said to start the process of change. So let me touch on Lisa real quick. She was used as a political prisoner, as an example of the political system. What happens when you go against the rules of Tyrant Timmy and Antifa Keith Ellison, that they're going to take away your businesses from you, and they're going to hunt you down, and they're going to track you down, and then they're going to throw you in jail. And that's exactly what they did to Lisa, and to the others that are being greatly affected as well. Those people are owed. Those people are owed restitution from the state, in my opinion, because for one, Tim Walz's executive orders are not law. They're mandates, and mandates only become effective when people comply to them. But she needs to be paid back, and so does everybody else from the state, because here at the end of the day, we're 2.5 years, and are we two? I don't even know when this thing started anymore.
A century?
Feels like a lifetime, right? A century into this COVID thing, right? And we're all boosted up 86 times, and and everybody looks like gremlins, because we're all mutants now. But that's literally how it feels. That's like my concept of time with this pandemic is in trying to put together. Somebody needs to build a website of a timeline of everything, I think. Just like the Gun Owners Caucus built that. Sorry, I'm going on a tangent. Have you seen that website that the Gun Owners Caucus built against Scott Johnson's gun control timeline? His stance on guns. Have you seen that yet?
No, I haven't. Who put that? While you're talking, who put that out?
The Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus put a website that they developed against Scott Jensen with his position on guns, and they showed an entire timeline. Man, I can't remember the website now. I'll find it here in a second. But
you keep talking. I'm listening.
Because he's flip flopped on guns drastically, and they put together that whole entire thing. But here's the deal. What happened to Lisa, what happened to Larvita, what happened to Lisa Monet, and I know I'm forgetting a few others, is it's unconscionable what the governor did to them and what these judges are doing. And that goes to show you that the power of the judiciary is too great when it comes to these types of situations, especially when I believe even the prosecution was asking for a lighter sentence than she received. But those orders came down from the top. They came down from Keith Ellison's office. They came down from Governor Tim Walz's office, down to the judge, down to the county prosecutor, what have it. That it trickled down that chain of command, and that's what happened. But we can fix the judicial system. Judges are elected and they're appointed. There's a large number of judges, to my knowledge, that still haven't been confirmed, which can easily be removed from office. Now, I don't want to go into the position as governor and just start, running around with a hatchet and cutting everything apart. But what we really need to do is look at the records of these judges. And we really need that website right there. We really need to look at the records of these judges and these prosecutors And I have to use the bully pulpit of the governor's office to call them out and call the plays as I see it when they're making these decisions and these choices that go against Minnesotans and Americans, just like Governor Ron DeSantis does in Florida. He's not afraid to use press conferences to say what needs to be said to get his point across, because the media will show up and they have to report on it and they will listen. But we also need to use everybody to make this change, right? So if the Republican Party of Minnesota actually takes the state over and the red wave does come through here in 2022, we need to, our GOP leadership, they need to start finding people to run for the judiciary. We need to find judges and put them into these electorates in these campaigns and get them elected by the people, because there are a lot of phenomenal people out there that are qualified to be judged. We just have to nudge them over the ledge and get them to go run against these bad judges that have gone political. And then
would you be in favor of finally putting judges not just on a ballot? Because quite frankly, you've probably been there. You go to vote, you look at a judge's name, there's no challenger. Or
Nope.
vote for up to 3 or whatever it is. There's no challenger. There's no information. There's no campaigning. It's just, here's this judge and you have to vote for him. And so a lot of people, instead of doing the smart thing and not voting in that situation, they just put their check mark by the name and cast their ballot. And these judges stay in office in perpetuity. What would you say? Do you think it would be good to finally start putting these voting records for these, or ruling records out for these judges and putting them out there and making them answer questions and saying, hey, look, now's the time. We're not going to ask you whether you're a Republican or Democrat or independent or whatever, but we're going to start asking you hard questions about these. Why did you rule this way in this case? Why did you give this sentence to this person? Do you think that's a fair play for them?
I do and I don't. And let me explain why. Because I never thought we'd ever get to this point in our society where our judicial system would be this corrupt. I mean, the entire point of judges, they're not supposed to hold a partisan position. They're supposed to view the rule of law as black and white, as written, and enforce it as written. And that's not happening anymore.
Right.
So that's where I have a hard time putting these judges up, on a debate stand and or even in a public forum and burn them. But there are a lot of them out there that really need to be brought down a peg or two because they feel invincible.
Yeah.
But what we need to do is we need to find people to run against these judges, people that are willing to stand up to them. And then you get your BPOUs or you get your patriot groups to try to put together debates and debate each other in a nonpartisan way on the issues and the rule of law. And if that opposing judge doesn't show up, well, then there you go. That's all it takes. That's it. You just need to find a judge and you need to lift them up within your community, somebody to run for that office, and then they're immediately elected. That is how easy it is to get a judge elected to overcome what we're facing right now.
Right.
Is you just need a group of people to support somebody and to show up on election day and circle in the bubble next to their name, and they're going to beat the incumbent.
Yeah.
And if we take that over, that's how we do it. But
do you think that ideologically the legal system in Minnesota, and I want to start to shift the focus a little bit, but I think this conversation is incredibly important because I don't think most people don't understand how important the position of governor is until it's too late.
Yeah.
Ideologically, do you think that within the legal system, there aren't a lot of Lynn Torgersons and Dennis Smiths out there who are willing to take on the system? And that's why you see a lot of these people going from being attorneys, practicing law, either in defense or in prosecution, who get handpicked to be judges because they just kind of toe the line.
Yep. And, the governor appoints a lot of judges too. And let's not forget that. And they serve their term, or they hold the position temporarily, and it's a revolving door. And Governor Walz just picks another one that's just like them until they can cycle the other person through again. And we need to put an end to that because, if you look at what happened at the truck stop in St. Paul with that shooting that occurred over October of last year, where 14 people were shot. That judge was appointed in 2020 by Tim Walz, who also happened to be the same judge that ruled on removal of absentee ballot signature verification requirements in the 2020 election, was also the same judge that let that shooter out of prison early who shot 14 people. But yet we're not screaming about the judge that did it. And we need to start finding out who our judges and our prosecutors are. And the governor needs to use their office effectively, because the law is supposed to be applied equally, and it's not being applied equally right now. Our justice system there is no justice really at the end of the day, unless you're going against their narrative. But we have to start from scratch, TC. We really do. And we have to get people elected in the Attorney General's office that are going to do that. That position is extremely important when it comes to the rule of law in Minnesota, because not only do you have the Attorney General, but the Attorney General hires out their entire office of lawyers to assist them. And right now, that entire office that Keith Ellison is running is corrupt, and it stinks to high heaven. And you've seen that in the news, because there's a lot of pay for play going on in the Attorney General's office.
Well, Dennis Smith provided two names. I don't know if you saw the video, but Dennis Smith provided two names to me. Took me a while to remember I was going to have him do that, but we got those names out there. Two people in the Attorney General's office that are funded and paid for by Bloomberg.
Yeah.
That boldly.
I thought it was Soros.
Well, we thought it was, and then Dennis corrected
Okay.
that. So it's
Bloomberg.
It's Bloomberg.
No
And we
different
put
than
those
Scott
names
Jensen
out.
supporting gun bills funded and bought and paid for by Michael Bloomberg too. Let's not forget
Correct.
that.
Please stand by.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at